as we move on to our guests for them to give us a little bit of a review of some of the most critical matters that came up in the course of the year. Sofo Yamuza in Kombongo says, I wish NDC an incident-free Congress. On the flip side, the governing NDC or NPA is being too dishonest to Ghanaians. In the last few weeks, there cannot be any tenable reason why fuel prices should not be reduced. Where has the so-called automatic price adjustment formula, has it evaporated to? Okay, PURC must state their position on this matter. Ghanaians are suffering. I think that's also a point. PURC, let's hear from you what your view is on this issue. Nana MK says, I think it will be difficult for them to reduce the prices of fuel due to the hedging they did some time ago. They are locked into a price, hence the problem. I don't think we are really buying the fuel at reduced price on the world market. Zion Inwa says, what actually is the meaning of automatic adjustment formula? Somebody need to explain the meaning with a clean heart to Ghanaians. I like that, a clean heart to Ghanaians, the meaning of the automatic adjustment formula. How can you buy crude oil less than $60 a barrel and sell it more than what somebody would have bought it? The same crude for $125 a barrel. Somebody is not telling Ghanaians the truth. It's a shame. Aviaka Akum says, we are told because we owe BDCs about 400 million, the government won't reduce fuel prices despite the drop in the oil price. Can we be told the following? 1, how much have we so far paid as a result of the non-reduction of prices? 2, can we henceforth be updated weekly on how much we owe BDCs so that we know when we will finish paying? Nanayao Safo in London says, is it not strange that the cost of production will go down whilst the price of the product goes up? The fuel price in UK is the lowest since 2009. The situation in Ghana does not make sense. That's right. Now, gentlemen, let me start with you. You pick your 2 issues. Let's know what you think, how government handled it, or if we were the ones supposed to have dealt with it in our individual capacities as citizens, how we did it, and if there's any suggestions going forward. I'll start with you. Which are the 2 things that come to mind?
The 2 things that come to mind, energy first of all, and therefore Dumso is the first one.
Okay.
And the second one, I think I want to just talk about the economy generally.
All right.
So
deal with that in 5 minutes or 4.
Okay. Well, let's start with what the president himself said going into 2014. His New Year message was that 2014 was going to be a message of a year of hope. He made promises about improvements, specific improvements in the energy sector, transport sector, and various other things. So he was clear that everybody should relax. 2014 was going to be a year of hope. What have we seen? We've seen a year of despair. Frankly, the tears of this country, we are a country facing the possibility of drowning in our own tears. The energy sector that the president promised that will improve. I think that everybody can testify to the point that that has been the biggest failure, one of the biggest failures of this government. And we can talk about maybe we should have planned years ago, we should have, and NDC in their manifesto talked about taking our megawattage, for example, from 2,480, I think, to 5,000. Where are we in that process? Did the president do that analysis before promising that there will be improvements? Did he know whether Bui will be completed and will deliver X, and whether that X will then be able to meet the needs of the country? Does anybody do any analysis? Did they do an analysis of what our energy needs rise is going to be every year? How much more are we going to need from year to year? And how much are we going to be in a position to provide for it? And is our public purse still full, or is it empty? Are we going to be able to do the things that we promised we're going to do? So on that score...
You're not overlooking what has happened at Atobo.
Well, I think that the bottom line for everybody, and me, I've stopped looking at the daily briefings or promises about this will come online, Atobo will do this, we finished it. I want to wake up in the morning, put on my light, and get light. That's what the majority of Ghanaians are concerned about. They're not interested in how much megawattage the government is promising from day to day, month to month, year to year. I want light. I want to go to work hard, come home, put my feet up, switch on my light, and get light. Finish. Bottom line. And the government is failing.
Okay.
And every day...
Move on to the next one.
Well, let's talk then about the economy generally. Here's a government which only 3 years ago was talking about unprecedented growth. We warned at the time that this growth was just meaningless. It was meaningless growth. It was jobless growth. It was growth that was not delivering anything. And yet they kept peddling this whole issue of macroeconomic stability, macroeconomic achievements. Let's look at those figures now. Let's look at inflation. Target of single digit 9.5%.
Which was achieved. That was a reality.
It's heading towards 17%, or is it more? It's at 17%. Our growth is now going to be under 6% or under 5%. Where are we heading with our economy? We've had the most unprecedented collapse of our currency. You may say that it's been stabilized, but look at where we began as an economy, as a country, the beginning of the year, look at where we are, and then testify whether the government has succeeded or not. I say they have not succeeded on the economic front. All the indicators are going down.
The government that took over an economy it described as broke at the time.
Well, and we're even more broke. Today we're even more broke. The doomsday is getting worse. Is it getting better? Are we better than we were at the beginning? Today our female mortality rate has gone up. Instead of 350 in 100,000 live births, it's gone up to 380. That means 200 more women are dying every year.
Okay.
Than they were at the beginning of the year.
Let me hear what Koku's two issues are, and in dealing with them, let me hear whether I can find a line of praise.
Actually, I was going for do so, but he's done justice. He's done justice to it, so I've eliminated it. And I think the CD depreciation tussle that we went through and how it was handled, that for me was a classic case of ineptitude institutionalized. You recall the Bank of Ghana and how it dealt with that issue. Even ordinary mortals like us, people who have no economic competence, from day one, wondered if it had any rationale, whether it could work. And we did a lot of noise here. They came up with some forest measures, which was predictably doomed to failure. And it did happen. Eventually, they did some revisions here and there, under the cover of Senchi and post-Senchi and all the rest. But it had a telling effect in terms of confidence in the banking system. And it didn't work anyway, so those ordinary minds and brains on the streets were vindicated. And
people are still asking, what's been the effect of Senchi anyway?
Yeah, well, the report is out. You saw it. But in terms of implementation. So for me, that part, I was really worried because I was thinking that those who we had entrusted the responsibility of managing fiscal monetary policies were on top, at least. People like us know nothing. But the way and manner it was handled and the kind of measures that were put in place and the fact that they eventually failed was indicative of the fact that there was something wrong with even the level of understanding of the problems that they were supposed to deal with. For me, it was classic. And it would take a long time for me to revise my feelings and perception of those who pushed that particular scheme that failed eventually. Then there's another thing that happened in Ghana, not necessarily with government, because I think we're entitled to look at how the year Yes, the emergence of the Occupy Ghana movement for me was very significant. We've had all sorts of civil society organizations. I've been around, dealt with some of them for many years. But I like the focus of that group.
It started with a stroll in the park.
Yes, the caliber of people, the brain power that was brought to bear, the attitude, the articulateness, I think was very focused. And what I like about it is now their decision to, target
agencies,
institutions within the context of their enabling legislation, find out the deficits. So you have a situation where you can then measure progress, and results to be delivered. That for me was a very significant development in 2014, and it was the basis of that I virtually suspended my retirement.
Okay, just hold on 1 minute. Let me go quickly and listen to Ivor Greenstreet at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium. Let's go.
Make sure you elect executives who will be able to steer your party's affairs when you are in opposition. I wish you a Merry Christmas, Afishiapa. Boys are bread. Boys are bread.
Okay, we just missed a bit of that. We are told that Ivor Greenstreet decided to use the opportunity to give a fraternal message to the NDC to criticize them for running down the economy. Have you finished?
Well, so that's it. I need not belabor the point. What I'm saying is that the emergence of that group was positive.
Right.
Its focus is very admirable, and we need more such focused approach. The targeting of institutions of state and agencies and dealing with them relative to their own legal regimes. And we need progress.
Using intellectual power to demand accountability, that's so to speak.
And of course the courts are there, they've indicated, so we make the system work.
The ultimatum that they issued to the Auditor General to surcharge and do all of the actions, the Auditor General has replied, we understand, but they want to take their time and study that response, and then they will get back to the general public, because they also have some sort of a social contract with us. Now, what are your issues too?
The perennial and perhaps universal issue of corruption, played out in a very major way in the course of the year, with the JIDA crisis and then the SADA issues taking a center stage, although other aspects of a similar problem also came up. And the way that the government approached the fight and the views that some sections of the population also expressed. The problem of corruption has proved to be perennial and has also proved to be universal. And it is proving to be very difficult to handle. Now, what I have observed, of course, before the beginning of the year, I think the government approach of using commissions to unearth the fundamental causes of some of these problems is one approach, not entirely new, because that has been used time and time again.
So we had the sole commissioner for judgment debt, Justice Apau, and we had Justice Senor Jamefe
for the Brazil issue.
Brazil fiasco.
Good. Now, there are people who have questioned the seriousness of government and its commitment to fight corruption by setting up these entities. And I think there may be some basis for that, having regard to the fact that there are similar, there have been similar commissions that have come out with recommendations that are not being seen to be implemented drastically. And on the basis of that, the question is asked, what will be new about this particular ones? And if there's going to be seriousness, then let's see you implement these other ones. So those are the issues. And from my point of view, I think that we should not only set up these bodies, but we should make resources available to implement the findings and recommendations that they come back with. Otherwise, we'll come to point zero. I mean, you set them up, they spend money, work, and come out reviews that have never been implemented. And the problem keeps coming up in the same shape that, I mean, we have known over the years. Then also the issue of prosecution. I mean, there have been some public individuals connected with the JIDA issue that are being prosecuted. Monies are being recovered.
Some people have asked the question, why the continuous refrain of public individuals? How many?
Well, but they are individuals. There are more than one. So you can see they are individuals.
300.
There are more than one, so you can say individuals.
Okay.
Well, so the point then is, even if there are 2 or 3 or 4, they are individual. Okay. But the question that some keep asking...
Okay, you may have to hold on briefly for me. Let's go back to Baba Yara. Kobna Eje Japong is speaking, and he's saying a few things along Ivor Green Street. Let's hear.
From the next president of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Greetings from my national chairman, Paul Afoko, and the general membership of the NPP. The NPP and the NDC are the 2 political parties that have had the opportunity to govern Ghana since the inception of the Fourth Republic. And in all probability, this situation is likely to prevail into the near future. It therefore goes without saying that the level and quality of discourse and interaction between our 2 parties in particular, and with other political parties in general, should be guided by a deep sense of maturity and nationalism. Sadly, to the contrary, recent happenings in the country have brought about despair, despondency, and with it, a crisis of confidence in politicians and political authority. Our media landscape has been inundated with the use of intemperate language, propaganda, insults, pure lies, which serve to poison the political atmosphere. We cannot continue down this road and scare good people away from the opportunity to serve our country in dignity. As politicians, we have a duty to lead by example, by upholding and respecting the virtues and the values of society. Tolerance, decency, discipline must guide the way we interact with each other. As leaders, we have to blaze a path worth emulating by celebrating our diversity, restoring hope, and also demonstrating a high sense of maturity in order to restore confidence and trust the good people of Ghana must have in democratic governance. As you have your conference today, we of the MPP hope you will elect a leadership that will ensure that the discourse between our 2 political parties will be elevated beyond needless propaganda, outright lies, pure insults, and total disrespect, and rather hold aloft the beauty of our Ghanaian cultural values and put a premium on decency, respect, truth, and fellow feeling. Politics is a serious enterprise, the centerpiece of which should be the welfare of the underprivileged. We cannot afford to expend our energies over trivialities and have absolutely no bearing on socio-economic well-being of our citizens. It is with a heavy heart that I stand before you. At the beginning of this year, Mr. President, you assured Ghanaians that 2014 was going to be a transformational year. However, you will admit that events over the past 12 months have paralyzed businesses, caused pain, depression, and general despondency. The results of the recent Afrobarometer survey graphically confirm the level of degeneration. Political leadership must be seen as a privilege to serve society. Indeed, political leadership has to be anchored on the pillars of selflessness, sacrifice, and service. What Ghana needs now is a political leadership that is courageous, that is competent and compassionate. What we require now is less talk and more action. The reorientation of the political class and the population at large must be our topmost priority. We need to revive the spirit of love for our country, Ghana. The current waste of our nation's meager resources must be checked in order to ensure that every pesewa is well utilized for the benefit of the ordinary Ghanaian. In our common objective to ensure a smooth electoral process in 2016 and beyond, we call on the NDC, like other parties, to support the MPP in the drive to get a fresh and more credible voters register so that we can guarantee a sane political environment, one Ghana, securing our common future. In conclusion, on behalf of my chairman, Mr. Paul Afoko, and the incoming president of the Republic, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, I want to wish you well. May God bless all of you. May God bless Ghana. Thank you very much.
To be made. You were doing your review on the commissions that were set up.
And I mean, the point I made, basically had to do with the fact that there are people who raise questions about the usefulness of these commissions, having regard to findings and recommendations of previous ones that are not being implemented, and the issues of prosecutions. Of course, some individuals are being prosecuted, but people still ask questions whether these individuals are all the individuals that ought to be prosecuted. And I believe that the relevant agencies must must respond to those charges, because, as you were alluding in your question, it cannot be that just 2 individuals or 3 or 4 will be the ones that we should be using all the time as examples of government's commitment to fighting corruption through prosecution. So, these are things, but it suggests that there's a problem or a difficulty with the fight against corruption. Recently, it came to light that even our laws, relating to corruption are not that comprehensive enough to deal with that canker. So, to show real commitment, perhaps we may need to revise our laws, make them comprehensive, so that they can easily rope in culpable persons for purposes.
Well, there are others who say, let's implement what we have now. Let's enforce the laws as we have them now, and then think of the next step. Eric, what do you have to say? Which issue?
Well, I'll just definitely touch on the economy, basically because, I think that in terms of its far-reaching implications on the country, it's been immense. First point is the depreciation of the cedi. We actually got to about 40% depreciation of the cedi. And at a point, it was the worst performing currency in the world. And all of these things were basically due to borrow from Kweku, the ineptitude from the government in terms of the way it has managed the economy. And the fact that even measures that was actually put into place by the Bank of Ghana was not far-reaching enough. It basically went into some kind of knee-jerk reactions. I remember the Bank of Ghana actually making an announcement that $20 million was actually going to be injected into the economy, when we know that there are people walking around this country with probably more than $20 million hiding underneath their beds. And this basically was a classic example as to exactly how the government basically saw the importance of basically managing the economy properly. Of course, we're still in an immoral pension for borrowing. I'll call that immoral because, as we speak today, the government stands to pay about 9 billion Ghana cedis per annum on interest alone. And the people of this country will be asking you, what exactly has been done with all these loans that has actually come to government? Probably nothing to show for it. Government's own account of exactly what has gone into that falls woefully short of exactly monies that actually come into the country. We are talking about government's persistence to over or inflate the prices of projects, or the fact that there's probably not a value for money audit on almost all the projects that are actually undergone in this country, and it's something that we should be looking at. We are still talking about our deficits. And as we speak today, based on the government's own projections, we're still going to be running deficit close to 8%, which is still not good enough, coming from 12% deficit in 2012 and 2013 and 2014, and its own projections as to exactly what's going to happen at the end of the year. And the fact that the government has issued a budget which doesn't give any hope at all to the people of this country, because come 2015, we are supposed to be going through some kind of austerity measures, and the government's own actions in terms of what it's put in place as priority doesn't basically give us any kind of confidence as we go forward. I cannot talk about 2014 without talking about what actually happened internally within our party, MPP. We managed to basically go through the process of electing executives all the way from the grassroots level, which is the polling station level, to the flag bearer, and then at the end of the day, the flag bearer himself has also chosen a running mate, which shows that, of course, if you look at the overwhelming support that was given to Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and the fact that the people of this country, the clarion call, basically says that the NDC has been inept, it has mismanaged the economy, and that MPP is poised and is basically ready for
Thank you very much.
power in
Stop you
2016.
there abruptly. Godwin Adawini is a private legal practitioner, lectures law also at the University of Professional Studies. He's the Dean of the Communications Studies Department of that university. Abdul Malik Kubaka Jr. is the Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. He's a regular panelist. Ni Amakomfra is the Communications Director of the CPP, that's the Convention People's Party. Eric Amwakuchum, joining us for the very first time on Newsfile, is a member of the communications team of the New Patriotic Party. He's the first vice chairman of the constituency at Trobo. I'm Samson Ladi Ayenini. I wish to announce to you that this is a very final edition for 2014. We are back on the 10th of January 2015 with more vim and vigor to provide you the very best you can have in news analysis on this part of the continent. 2014, I must say, has been a great deal for Newsfile. I want to say thank you particularly to Abdul Malik Kubaka Jr., all the guys who have been part of this particular program. This show had no competition, according to the only reliable source, scientific survey which businesses use in this country. This show had no competition, has been riding very high, hitting the roofs for the whole of the period. We say thank you to you because you make us who we are. Sedem Kori has been the man who's been working the phones and doing all the hard talk behind the scenes to get the show running robustly, together with Emmanuel Ante, Sami Odame, Matilda Omega, Kwabena as well. Thank you, all of you. And of course, Kofi Ansah, with all the executive support that you have given the show. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. The NDC's Congress continues. Have a good afternoon.